Okay, we're about to create our first project. But first, we need to quickly see what we're getting ourselves into and take a look at an existing project that is very similar to what we're attempting to achieve. So we'll be looking at a stock template called Rolling from Epic. The aim here will be to do a bit of reconnaissance of what this demo contains and set the scene for what it is we want to create. We'll be doing no coding in this lecture, we'll just be gathering information ready to start coding in the next lecture. And for that, we won't be taking this project as a base, no. I wanted to teach you more by doing it ourselves and give you more creative freedom as we do so. It won't take a huge amount of time, but doing it this way, you'll learn much. Now, you can follow along if you want to repeat the steps I'm taking here and get more of a feel for things, or you can just watch this lecture alone to save time. It'll be enough. Just quickly though, I want to change a couple of settings in Visual Studio to make things better as we move forwards, and you might want to replicate some of these things too. First, I've already bumped the display scaling so things are easy for you to read with the relatively low resolution video you're watching this on. But now I'm going to change the Visual Studio color scheme to make that even easier. And secondly, I'm going to disable Code Lens as it just lists the source code with irrelevant information about who modified what and when we're actually working alone here. So let's rid ourselves of that distraction. And just restart quickly to get that color scheme properly loaded. Also, we don't need to see the Server Explorer, the Toolbox, the Data Sources, Properties, or Team Explorer. Yep, gone. Right, finally. Now we can move forward and actually create this test project from the rolling template Epic provide, and to do that, we need to fire up the editor. Right, I'm just going to create a quick test project from the rolling template. Okay, all done. Just set rolling test as the startup project. Now Control F5. So I'm going to play the level to show what the ball here is doing. So much of this world is static and rigid, and some of it not. So we've got some interactivity going on here, which is good. Okay, I think we've seen enough. Now, what's in this level that we should reproduce? Well, there are a lot of static meshes, easy enough. Static meshes are just that, static geometry meshes that are collidable. And some seem to have the physics simulation enabled for them so can be interacted with and move around, like these boxes here. And others not. The rest of the world by the look of it. So the floor and the walls won't be, but these stacked boxes will have physics simulation. We also have a post-process volume. This governs how the scene is rendered. Let's just demonstrate that by changing a couple of properties. So, chromatic aberration. And let's look at vignette. Okay, you get the picture. There's a light source as well here. We can change the intensity of that just to demonstrate that. And that's it really, nothing special about this level, so very easy for us to produce something similar. We're going to create a game with a sphere as the player pawn, and we're going to have some obstacles, use real physics, and have an end goal to the game. But hopefully we'll produce something a little more interesting than what we've just seen here. Let's switch over to Visual Studio now for a moment to see what's going on with the code for this project. So the source folder, rolling test. Now we have a bare bones game mode. Just tells us which pawn to use for the player when they play a level. Here it points to the ball class, which is why we appeared as a ball when the level began. The ball class itself is a bit more interesting. You see we have three components in this pawn. You remember that pawns are controlled by players and we will always want to have at least one component. And here we have three. The ball mesh, a camera, and a spring arm to mount the camera upon. So we have a few assorted properties and functions too. But nothing special. This is going to be pretty easy stuff. In the constructor for the ball, we create these three components. We set the mesh as the root component. We always need a root component, and in this case, the ball mesh is the obvious choice. To the mesh, we attach the spring arm, and to the spring arm, we attach the camera. We initialize some controller inputs, so we have some interaction from the player, and then we handle the movement via those inputs. And that's about it. So you see, we got quite a lot of functionality there when we played the level in the editor, but there's not a lot of code behind it. This really does demonstrate the power of the engine, enabling the game coder to achieve results rapidly. We'll be doing a little bit more than this in our first project though, but it will be manageable, and hopefully we'll end up with something a bit more playable too. Okay, we've seen enough then to know what we're getting into, so we can close this lecture and begin our new project in earnest, starting in the next. But first, Let's just close the editor and Visual Studio, then delete the test project, as it's of no use to us now. There, done. Okay, all clean, ready for us to begin the next lecture.